You must certainly possess the exceptional traits of a distinguished man. That is how you have made her so compliant." Hearing those last words, Fang Chen curled his lip, thinking to himself that this person dares to spout any nonsense. Choosing Meng blinked her eyes, leaned close to Qin Kei's ear and whispered, "Did this senior sister use the wrong expression? I have only ever heard of a person's exceptional traits. What on earth is exceptional traits of a distinguished man?" Qin Kei's face flushed red. She poked choosing Meng's forehead and said, "Little children should not ask too many questions." The Hehuan sect was truly no place to stay for long. If they lingered any longer, choosing Meng, who was as pure as a blank sheet of paper, would be thoroughly corrupted. Choosing Meng rubbed her forehead, her face full of grievance, completely unaware of what was wrong with her question. Yi Lingxing clenched her fists, furious and embarrassed, and snapped, "Yu Zijin, are you looking for a beating?" Yu Zijin giggled non-stop. "Lies do no harm, but the truth cuts like a sharp blade. Lingxing, are you flustered?" Yi Lingxing's face burned with shame and rage. She wished she could crack Yu Zijin's skull open and scour the inside thoroughly with clean water. What in the world was filling this person's head? "Cut the chatter, hurry up and sign for the mission goods." Having had her fun teasing Yi Lingxing, Yu Zijin was thoroughly amused, and immediately picked up the jade slip to register the mission. But just at that moment, a tall, beautiful woman, dressed in palace robes, accompanied by several disciples, approached gracefully. The moment Yu Zijin saw her, her expression shifted. She quickly put down what she was doing, stepped forward along with the other Hehuan sect disciples, bowed and greeted. "Greetings, great Elder Ling." Fang Chen looked over and saw that she was a middle-aged woman around 40 years old, her features exceptionally well preserved, her complexion rosy. She wore her hair in a falling horsebun and was clad in a simple, appropriate set of palace robes, looking exceedingly dignified and imposing. However, her expression was rather grim at that moment, and she said in a cold voice, "Someone has reported that a disciple of our sect accepted bribes and signed for mission goods of inferior quality passed off as top grade. Is there any truth to this?" Yu Zijin's heart dropped. She had a premonition that something terrible was about to happen. She darted a sidelong glance at the male disciple who had previously received Fang Chen's team. The man wore an innocent expression and quickly waved his hands to signal that he was not the one who had made the report. Just then, from a group parked by the roadside, the curtain of a carriage was lifted, and a burly young man missing his right arm jumped down. His kai and blood were astoundingly abundant, and a faint layer of blood-colored mist could be vaguely seen covering his body. Fang Chen recognized this man. He was none other than Sun Chaozong, the second disciple of Great Elder Tai Bu Bai of the Great Giant Sect. His right arm had been severed by Fang Chen himself. However, Fang Chen had been wearing a mask at the time, so the man did not recognize him. Sun Chaozong looked at Elder Ling and said, "Elder Ling, the person I spoke of is none other than your sect's disciple Yu Zijin, and the one who bribed her is that disciple from the Azure Cloud Sect." Fang Chen. Sun Chaozong looked at Fang Chen with a mocking sneer. Normally, he would not bother meddling in other people's affairs, but the moment he learned Fang Chen was an Azure Cloud Sect disciple, rage flooded his heart. His master had had his cultivation base crippled by the Azure Cloud Sect Master, which had led to him being ambushed and killed by a mysterious figure. Now that he had run into someone from the Azure Cloud Sect, how could he possibly let them off easily? Elder Ling fixed her sharp, beautiful gaze on Yu Zijin. Is this true? She was naturally well aware that the lower-ranked disciples often extorted bribes and made things difficult for others, but she had always turned a blind eye to it. After all, Hehuan Sect disciples often faced similar extortion and difficulties when carrying out their own missions. Why should the disciples of the Hehuan Sect have to swallow losses meekly? That said, accepting bribes was one thing, but passing off inferior goods as high quality was completely unacceptable. The beast tide was fast approaching, and there could be no room for sloppiness with strategic supplies, or lives would be lost. Cold sweat immediately poured down Yu Zijin's back, and she said guiltily, "Great Elder, this disciple knows her mistake. The mission goods escorted by Yi Lingxing's team are not defective at all. Great Elder will see this with a single glance." Elder Ling followed her gaze, and immediately locked her eyes on the 10,000 live vultures, a look of joy crossing her face at once. She clearly knew just how valuable these 10,000 live vultures were as strategic supplies. Seeing that none were missing and none were injured, she was filled with delight, and all intention of making things difficult vanished. She immediately spoke to exonerate Yu Zijin, Fang Chen, and the others. "There is indeed no problem here. The spirit beast sect is thousands of li away. It is only natural that these thousand li Vultures are exhausted from the long journey. They will recover after a few days of rest. Yu Zijin sign for them immediately and take them back to recuperate properly. Yu Zijin was overjoyed, though she did not understand why the great elder valued these vultures so highly. She had at least managed to escape disaster this time. She cast a triumphant sidelong glance at Sun Chaozong, who had filed the report, before picking up the jade slip and registration ledger once more. Sun Chaozong refused to let the matter rest. Even if he could do nothing to Fang Chen, Yu Zijin, who had gone out of her way to side with Fang Chen, surely deserved some form of punishment, did she not? He said in a low, heavy tone, Elderling, your sect's disciple has openly accepted bribes. If you do not impose severe punishment, what will the other sects think? What will the heavenly secrets pavilion think? Elderling truly did not care what the other sects thought. All sects acted the same way, so none had any right to point fingers at each other, but if word of this reached the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion, it was a matter she dared not take lightly. After a moment of deliberation, she said majestically, Yu Zijin, return all the spirit crystals you have accepted. Yu Zijin had never intended to keep Fang Chen's gift in the first place, so she returned it to him, readily, without any hesitation. But Sun Chaozong pushed for more, sneering, is that all that suffices? Elderling fixed him with a sharp glare. Sun Chaozong, this is the Hehuan Sect. This elder has full authority over how to discipline our own disciples. Her meaning was clear. He should stop while he was ahead. Sun Chaozong was completely unafraid. He snorted. Then I will write a letter right now to report Yu Zijin to the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion. And report you as well, Elder, for shielding your disciple. A flicker of anger crossed Elderling's beautiful face, but she knew she had to handle this carefully. Once the matter was officially reported, the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion would certainly impose punishment. Rage made Yu Zijin's fair face turn cold with killing intent. She knelt on one knee and said, Elderling, this disciple is willing to accept punishment. She did not want to put Elderling in a difficult position. Only then did a faint, triumphant cold smile appear on Sun Chaozong's face. Elderling's expression showed hesitation. Finally, she gritted her teeth and was just about to announce the punishment. But Fang Chen stepped forward and said, Grand Elderling, these spirit crystals are a greeting gift between friends, not a bribe. If the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion wishes to impose any punishment, Fang Chen, will take full responsibility for it. Yu Zijin was only facing punishment because she had helped him. There was no way he would stand by and do nothing. Sun Chaozong scoffed, You take responsibility. Who do you think you are, that you can bear such a heavy burden? As soon as the words left his mouth, Elderling's expression shifted slightly in surprise. Wait, what is your name? She suddenly remembered the sect master's earlier instructions. Fang Chen was speechless. How did everyone seem to know who he was? He cupped his hands in salute and said, Forgive this junior for being unworthy of your attention. I am Fang Chen, that disciple from the Hehuan Sect. However, Elderling's reaction caught Fang Chen completely off guard. So you are indeed Fang Chen of Hehuan Sect. Elderling wore a warm, amiable smile as she looked him over. No wonder the sect master thinks so highly of you. Putting everything else aside, your sense of loyalty and righteousness just now is more than worthy of praise. Fang Chen was confused. The Hehuan Sect Master, I have never met her before. Fang Chen even had the strange illusion that he had returned to the Spirit Beast Sect, for out of the 9 great sects, only Gong Kei had ever thought so highly of him before. It was not just Fang Chen who was stunned. Yu Zijin was also completely bewildered. The sect master thought highly of Fang Chen. Did she value him because he was a cultivator with no spirit roots? Yi Lingxing, Qin Kei, and Chu Xing Meng exchanged glances with each other, all stunned. Surely that could not be right. Had Fang Chen gained the sect master's favor simply by saving a Hehuan sect female disciple named Yu Mingju? Elderling spoke, Yu Zijin, what are you waiting for? Immediately sign for and accept young Master Fang's mission goods. The sect master is waiting to summon him. The sect master wanted to see Fang Chen. Yu Zijin was completely confused and asked hurriedly, Then what about my punishment? Elderling rolled her eyes at her. Since you were helping young Master Fang, why would you be punished? As she spoke, she pulled a medicinal pill from her bosom and handed it over, saying, Take this. This is your reward for taking good care of young Master Fang. Yu Zijin caught it in stunned surprise, opened the container, and froze. Supreme Joy Pill. A look of overjoyed delight immediately crossed her face. Thank you, Elderling. Thank you for your reward, Elderling. The surrounding Hehuan sect disciples' eyes almost popped out of their heads in shock. Was this some kind of joke? This Supreme Joy Pill was only awarded to disciples who had made extraordinary contributions. Their own chief senior disciple, Brother Zai, only received one a year. Yu Zijin had done nothing but do a small favor for Fang Chen, and she was awarded an entire Supreme Joy Pill. How could this be fair? This sight made Sun Chaozong explode with rage. Not only had Yu Zijin escaped punishment, she had even received an incredible reward just for helping Fang Chen. He snorted furiously. "Elderling, I will write that letter immediately." But Elderling cut him off straight away. She said casually, "Write as much as you like." She had served the Sect Master for over a decade, and this was the first time she had seen the Sect Master care so deeply about someone. No matter how much she shielded Fang Chen and those related to him today, the Sect Master would back her up. Even if the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion handed down punishment, the Sect Master would take the brunt of it for her. There was no need to worry about any report at all. Sun Chaozong clenched his fists tightly. He could not understand why Elderling was shielding Fang Chen so blatantly. He could not help snorting. All he did was deliver a few birds. What's the big deal? Is it worth making such a fuss over? At this moment, Yu Zijin had already happily stowed away the Extreme Joy Elixir, excitedly completing the final registration. The task undertaken by Fang Chen, Yi Lingxing, Qin Ke, and Chu Xingmeng was classified as a Tier 1 task. When recording this detail, Yu Zijin only cast a surprised glance at the 1,000-mile vultures. Their extraordinary value was far beyond her expectations. However, when she registered the merit points for this task, she was stunned on the spot. The merit points for this task are 400. How much 400? How is this possible? Sun Chaozong did not believe it at all. Ordinary Tier 1 tasks only award 100 merit points. Even the most difficult Ultra Tier 1 tasks, the peak of Tier 1 difficulty, only give 200. How could there be 400? Are your eyes failing you? Yu Zijin rubbed her eyes, carefully cross, referencing the 4 jade slips to confirm she had not misread, and insisted firmly, "It is indeed 400 merit points." Even Elderling could no longer remain calm. She stepped forward quickly, her face filled with disbelief. "Let me see." She picked up the 4 jade slips, and after comparing them, a hint of shock crossed her beautiful face. It truly is 400 merit points. The task itself is an Ultra Tier 1 difficulty task, with a base reward of 200 merit points. Additionally, tasks for the Spirit Beast Sect are granted double rewards, hence the total merit points for this task amount to 400. This triggered an immediate uproar across the entire venue. Countless pairs of eyes, red with jealousy, darted back and forth between Fang Chen and the other 3 as discussions erupted everywhere. Completing 1 Tier 1 task is equivalent to finishing 4 regular Tier 1 tasks. This is a leap to the heavens in a single step. Fang Chen and those 2 female disciples have simply caught the biggest lucky break, clinging to Yi Lingxing's coattails to get 400 merit points for nothing. Watching them reap such a heaven-defying advantage makes me absolutely miserable. Even Yu Zijin could not hide her envy, nibbling slightly on her pearlescent white teeth as she said, "Lingxing, how could you not think of me for such a great assignment? All you care about is men, you fake friend, cutting our friendship off." Sun Chaozong was also exceptionally bitter. Not only was the task reward real, what he found most unacceptable was that one of the beneficiaries was none other than that good, for nothing Fang Chen. He glared viciously at Fang Chen. "Pretty boy, a useless leech who only lives off women. The Azure Cloud Sect is full of trash like you." At that moment, Elderling's face filled with astonishment. She said in disbelief, "The person who claimed this task is Fang Chen. Young Master Fang, you are the captain of this team." Even she had subconsciously assumed Yi Lingxing was the one leading the task, and that Fang Chen and the other 2 female disciples were just tagging along for free merit points, but the information attached to the jade slips said the exact opposite. Chu Xingmeng could not help but lower her head in shame, saying, "I have been Fang Shixing's partner since we were at the Supreme Sect. We initially took on a Tier 3 task, and thanks to Fang Shixing's guidance and support, I had the audacity to accompany him on this Ultra Tier 1 task. I truly do not deserve to take a share of the 400 merit points." Qin Ke also blushed, saying, "I am only at the 5th layer of the Foundation Establishment realm, and I would never have qualified to take on a Tier 1 task. Fortunately, Fang Shidi is kind and generous, and he took me along out of consideration for our bond as teammates." Yi Lingxing also felt a little embarrassed, coughing lightly as she said, "Though I have some cultivation, all the numerous dangers along the way were wiped out single-handedly by Fang Shidi. My contribution was negligible. I was only responsible for driving the carriage. I am truly ashamed." The entire crowd was stunned. It was one thing for the two women to say this, but what left them astounded was that even Yi Lingxing, an elite female disciple of the Spirit Beast sect, had also been brought along by Fang Chen. Just how high was Fang Chen's strength? They could not believe that this disciple rumored to have a useless spirit root could possess such power. Only Elder Ling harbored no doubts, for she trusted the sect master's judgment. He would never favor a disciple who truly had a useless spirit root. This disciple, named Fang Chen, most likely possessed earth-shattering, extraordinary strength. Young Master Fang's strength is truly exceptional. I was wrong to underestimate you previously. Sun Chaozong found these words exceptionally grating. He could not accept that the so-called useless disciple of the Azure Cloud Sect was actually the leader of this task, and said with a face full of contempt, "What exceptional strength! They simply got lucky and didn't run into any danger, that's all." Yu Zijin's face was full of annoyance, and she said, "You speak as if you encountered so much danger yourself." Sun Chaozong let out a cold sneer. "Nonsense. Do you think everyone is as lucky as that useless Fang Chen? On my way to escort the goods, I encountered a giant bird that could unleash lightning all over its body. Both of my companions perished, and I barely survived by a hair's breadth to bring the mission goods back safely." The crowd was horrified. Those who could team up with a powerhouse like Sun Chaozong, whose physical strength was comparable to a first-layer Golden Core Realm cultivator, had to be at least at the 9th layer of the Foundation Establishment realm. Even they had fallen, which showed just how terrifying that giant bird was. It was a literal miracle that Sun Chaozong had made it back alive. In comparison, Fang Chen's team, whose overall strength was not top tier, had escorted top, raided goods, and returned completely unharmed. They really were absurdly lucky. Yu Zijin was left speechless, her face full of awkwardness. She had wanted to speak up for Fang Chen and the others, only to be utterly humiliated in return. Fang Chen could not be bothered to waste words with him, saying, "Yu Shiji, please sign for the 1,000-mile vultures quickly." Yu Zijin nodded, immediately leading several disciples forward to undo the restraints on the 1,000-mile vulture's feet. She spotted a giant claw that was too large to fit inside the carriage sticking out, and curiously pulled it out, only to find it was as tall as two of her. She stared in shock, saying, "It's enormous. Fang Shidi, what ferocious beast does this claw belong to?" The crowd was also filled with wonder, crowding forward to take a closer look, sighing in awe at the sight. Even Elder Ling was moved. She examined it carefully, saying, "This should be the claw of an avian demonic beast, and its body length is at least 20 zhang. A beast of this size must be at least at the Golden Core realm." As she said this, she looked at Fang Chen in shock, asking, "Where did you obtain this claw?" Yi Lingxing glanced at Sun Chaozong, a faint mocking smile on her face. "Where do you think it came from?" "Of course we cut it off the Silver Wing Thunderbird that attacked Sun Chaozong. We aren't like Sun Chaozong, who was scared out of his wits, lost 2 teammates, and still acts all proud of barely escaping with his life after such a humiliating defeat." The pent-up frustration in her chest was instantly released. Qin Kai and Chu Xingmeng also felt a surge of pride. This man had been sneering and jeering at them from the very start, and now he had finally been served a well-deserved slap in the face. "Nonsense! You have no idea how powerful that bird that attacked me was. How could you possibly cut off its claw and escape with your lives?" Sun Chaozong laughed angrily, refusing to believe it at all. Qin Kai said disdainfully, "If the bird you're talking about can unleash lightning all over its body, then it's the same Silver Wing Thunderbird we encountered. A 5th-layer Golden Core Realm giant bird. Its claw was cut off by Fang Shidi, who also severely wounded it." Yu Zijin was utterly stunned by these words. A 5th-layer Golden Core Realm Silver Wing Thunderbird had been wounded and had its claw cut off by Fang Chen. Let alone Sun Chaozong not believing it, even she, who was on their side, could not believe it. This avian beast king is at the 5th layer of the Golden Core Realm. Even the elders of the Hehuan Sect would struggle to subdue it. When her gaze fell on the broken part of the sharp claw, her pupils constricted slightly. This claw had indeed been severed by a sharp blade. The crowd shifted their gaze over and collectively drew cold breaths. The cut was perfectly smooth, without the slightest crack, leaving no doubt that it had been cleanly sliced off. Just as everyone was filled with doubt, Chu Xingmeng pulled out a large bundle of materials from the red-scaled evil flood dragon. Senior brother Fang also killed this beast king. It was extremely ferocious. Elder Ling looked over, and her expression changed once more. Another beast king, an aquatic demonic beast. She looked at Fang Chen with utter disbelief. "How many dangers did you encounter along the way, that you could all arrive safely, and even keep the 1,000 live vultures unharmed?" Qin Kai said, "To tell you the truth, these 1,000 live vultures were frightened into their listless state by the silver-winged Thunderbird." The crowd was stunned beyond measure. They had thought Sun Chaozong's experience was already extraordinary, but only now did they realize that Fang Chen's journey was a true feat. He slayed the aquatic beast king when he encountered it, while crossing the river, fought the sky raptors when they appeared, cutting through all obstacles with unstoppable force, and successfully arrived at the Hehuan Sect. Even the chief disciples of the 9 sects could not guarantee they would be able to achieve this. Fang Chen cupped his hands in salute and said, "There was an element of luck involved. Everyone need not make much of it. Who would believe such a thing? Did the red, scaled evil flood dragon ram itself to death? Did the 5th layer golden core realm Silver Winged Thunderbird break its own claw against a rock? Without absolute strength, such an impressive battle record would be impossible." Elder Ling's eyes were filled with admiration. Though the sect master had a childish, playful temper, as the Grand Elder, she was fully convinced of her sharp eye for talent. "Young Master Fang, will you use this claw for yourself or sell it? If you wish to sell it, my Hehuan sect can purchase it. This is absolutely a top-grade material for forging divine weapons." Just as Fang Chen was about to speak, Yu Zijin quietly gave him a signal to hold back. Fang Chen understood immediately and said, "I do not intend to sell it for the time being." Elder Ling's face showed disappointment, and she said, "Very well. Then let us go meet our sect master first." Fang Chen nodded and followed Elder Ling toward the inner grounds of the Hehuan sect. Yu Zijin followed behind, and while Elder Ling was not paying attention, she quietly leaned close to his ear and said, "Don't sell it to our Hehuan sect. There is an exchange conference tonight, where elite disciples from all sects gather to trade their spoils of war. Go there first to see if you can exchange it for something you want, then decide whether to sell it or not." Fang Chen's eyes lit up. The disciples of the various sects would all have made some gains along the journey, and some might even have had fortuitous encounters and found rare treasures. Rather than selling the claw, it would be far better to exchange it for an item he desired. He gave Yu Zijin a grateful look, then followed Elder Ling across the threshold into the mist-shrouded Hehuan sect. Yu Zijin returned to the sect entrance, looked at Yi Langxing's back as she was arranging the carriages, curled her lips in displeasure, strode over angrily, and pinched her arm hard. Yi Langxing was caught off guard by the blow and cried out in pain. Yu Zijin said with a resentful expression, "I never would have guessed. You always act so arrogant and act like you want nothing to do with men, but you're even better at catching a good man's eye than I am. Color me impressed." Yi Langxing was half amused, half angry. "Have you lost your mind? How could I ever be worthy of junior brother Fang? Take a look for yourself. Does he lack women around him?" Yu Zijin glanced at Qin Kai and Chu Xingmeng, one classically elegant and beautiful, the other pure and lovely, neither inferior to Yi Langxing in appearance. That made sense, after all. How could such an outstanding man lack female companions? Her eyes lit up with a thought, and she added, "On the other hand, one more of me around him wouldn't make much of a difference, right? Help me play matchmaker, won't you?" Yi Langxing spread her hands and said helplessly, "You don't stand a chance. You have no idea how popular he is with women. He fell off a cliff once and even picked up a staggeringly beautiful young maiden. I'm completely baffled by his luck." The thought of that incident made her want to complain. Yu Zijin rolled her eyes at her. "Are you spouting storyteller nonsense to fool me?" Yi Langxing scoffed. "I wish it was just a tall tale, but it's the absolute truth." "Oh right, that maiden is even a female disciple of your Hehuan sect." Yu Zijin looked shocked. "A disciple of our sect? What's her name? I don't believe something that absurd is real." Yi Langxing said, "Her name is Yu Mingzhu." Yu Zijin answered immediately and firmly the moment she heard the name. "She is not a disciple of our sect. I know every single female disciple of the Hehuan sect. There is absolutely no one named Yu Mingzhu among them." Yi Langxing was stunned. Qin Kai and Chu Xingmeng also leaned over, both of their faces filled with surprise. Qin Kai said, "But her name really is Yu Mingzhu. Your chief disciple, Zai Liushu, and a group of other disciples were all there when we met her." Chu Xingmeng nodded repeatedly. Yes, she's such a pretty girl, and her name is so lovely. Senior brother Zai, senior sister Jai, and many other Hehuan sect disciples all know her." Yu Zijin was completely confused. She even started to doubt herself. Could there be a female disciple in our Hehuan sect that everyone knows except me? She pondered for a long while, then mumbled, Yu Mingzhu, Yu Mingzhu. That feels like it comes from a poem, right?" Chu Xingmeng nodded and answered, "The moon over the blue sea shines on pearls that hold tears. The sun above Lanshan warms jade that breathes out mist. That's why the name is so nice." But the moment she heard that line of poetry, Yu Zijin's whole body trembled violently, because the Hehuan Sect Master's real name was taken from the second line of that very poem. She immediately realized what was going on and broke out in a cold sweat for Fang Chen, asking nervously, Did you treat her poorly? Were you disrespectful to her at all?" Yi Langxing said unhappily, "Respect her? Why should we? She was saved by junior brother Fang and didn't even seem grateful, so he lectured her a little." Kincaid also snorted dismissively. If you ask me, we should have thrown her back to the bottom of the cliff to climb up on her own. We only poked her forehead and scolded her a little. She got off extremely easy. Chu Xingming nodded her fair, small chin. Senior Brother Fang is indeed far too kind and benevolent. After hearing all that, Yu Zijin felt the world spin around her, her vision turning black. They poked the Sect Master's forehead and lectured her. It was over. Fang Chen was going to meet the Sect Master now. He was completely doomed. The Hehuan Sect Master's main hall. Yu Mingju had changed into a fresh, elegant pink dress, which paired perfectly with her flawless, fair 18-year-old face, making her look like a faint pink lotus peeking out from a vast expanse of green lotus leaves. Right now, she was swinging her crossed legs lazily, her hands laced behind her head, craning her neck to look outside the hall from time to time, muttering, "Why is he still not here? This Sect Master has been wanting to scold you for ages." The thought of the times Fang Chen had lectured her made her fume. She had to get revenge for this slight, no matter what. At this moment, Jai Rai, you hurried over to report. Sect Master, Elder Ling has brought Fang Chen here. Yu Mingju had brought her back to the sect one step ahead earlier and ordered her to stay by her side temporarily to take orders. For this, Jai Rai, you was naturally overjoyed and felt extremely grateful to Fang Chen in her heart. Right now, she rushed over in haste to report the news regarding Fang Chen. Yu Mingju's eyes lit up, and she immediately picked up a silver mask on the table and put it on her face. To prevent Fang Chen, that little slippery rascal, from recognizing her through her eyes, the eye openings of the mask were covered with two thin pieces of crystal, making her look extremely mysterious once she wore it. This brat, just wait and see how I teach him a lesson. Yu Mingju was brimming with anticipation. Jai Rai, you could not help but feel worried. Sect Master, take it easy. Yu Mingju said, relax, I know my limits. Jai Rai, you said weakly, this disciple means, Sect Master, you should be careful. Junior brother Fang's strength is extraordinary. Yu Mingju laughed angrily. I need to be careful of him. Even if I stand still and do nothing, his meager strength cannot do anything to me. If she had known that not long ago, another female Sect Master had stood still and suffered a humiliating loss, she would never have thought this way. Tap, tap. Footsteps soon sounded as Elder Ling led Fang Chen striding into the main hall. Fang Chen looked at the woman in pink robes seated on the Sect Master's jade throne and could not help but feel surprised. So the Hehuan Sect Master was also a woman, and judging from her attire and skin tone, she was surprisingly young. He only wondered why she wore a mask on her face. Could it be that she was very ugly? Though he thought this in his heart, Fang Chen did not reveal any emotion on his face. He stepped forward and cupped his hands in salute. Fang Chen, disciple of Qingyun Sect, greets the Hehuan Sect Master. Yu Mingju looked at the man before her, grinding her teeth so hard they creaked. She cursed inwardly. Brat, you've finally fallen into my territory. Just wait and see how I teach you a lesson. She spoke slowly. I heard that the 1,000 live vulture you escorted is listless and weak. Do you know that this is an extremely important strategic asset, and no mistakes are allowed? She opened with an accusation, intending to teach him a harsh lesson and pay back all the grievances she had suffered earlier. Elder Ling was stunned. Just a moment ago, the Sect Master had looked like she held Fang Chen in high regard, so why had she suddenly turned hostile and started scolding him? How could she understand Yu Mingju's mixed feelings of love and hate? Elder Ling hurriedly pleaded for Fang Chen. Sect Master, there is a valid reason for the 1,000 live vulture's listless state, and Fang Chen is truly not to blame. Encountering that Silver Wing Thunderbird, being able to bring the 1,000 live vulture back alive, is already an extraordinary feat. How can we possibly reprimand him further? Yu Mingju was determined to seize on Fang Chen's slightest flaw to teach him a harsh lesson right now, so how could she let him off so easily? She spoke in a cold, unfeeling tone. No matter how great the reason is, no harm may come to the 1,000 live vulture. Fang Chen frowned. This Hehuan Sect Master looked young, but why was she so unreasonable? He complained silently for a moment, then cupped his hands and said, Sect Master, we encountered the Silver Wing Thunderbird on our way here. Its appearance frightened the 1,000 live vulture, but the vulture has not sustained any injuries. Yu Mingju raised her eyebrows, her voice rising a pitch. Silver Wing Thunderbird, are you certain it was this beast? That is impossible. This Silver Wing Thunderbird has been hovering within the borders of the Hehuan Sect for half a month. I personally led people to hunt it down, but not only did we fail, a Golden Core Realm 4th Layer Elder was also severely injured and remains in critical condition to this day. I have experienced its might and cunning firsthand. If Fang Chen had encountered this Silver Wing Thunderbird, there is absolutely no way he would have survived. Elder Ling answered on Fang Chen's behalf. Reporting to Sect Master, what Fang Chen said is true. Yu Mingju narrowed her eyes. How are you so certain, Elder Ling? What if this is only this boy's side of the story? Elder Ling said with a helpless laugh, this humble concubine has naturally confirmed the claw of the Silver Wing Thunderbird, which is why I dare to be so sure.
What?
Yu Mingju abruptly lowered her crossed legs, traces of shock appearing on her peerless face beneath the mask. Fang Chen, you cut off this beast's claw. How is that possible, when my golden core realm 4th layer elder was ambushed? He was severely wounded by the Silver Wing Thunderbird. If I had not arrived in time, he would have been torn to shreds alive by the beast. Not only are you unharmed, you even cut off that terrifying claw of its. Fang Chen cupped his hands and said, yes, I managed to cut it off by luck and injured it in 2 other places as well. It should be hiding somewhere to heal its wounds right now. What, you injured it as well? Yu Mingju stood up with a sharp jolt, her face full of disbelief, but she quickly realized she was losing her composure and hurriedly sat back down. Looking at Fang Chen before her, she was filled with doubt and astonishment. How had Fang Chen managed this? To actually be able to injure that Silver Wing Thunderbird. Elder Ling continued, therefore the 1,000-Li vulture was only frightened. Fang Chen not only has no fault, he has made a great contribution. If the Sect Master reprimands him for this, I am afraid it would be inappropriate. Yu Mingju felt frustrated. She had finally thought she had caught Fang Chen on a small flaw, only to find that it was not a flaw at all, but a great merit. Even if she tried to argue unreasonably, she could not continue her accusation. Why was it so difficult to teach this brat a lesson? But soon her eyes lit up with an idea, and she put on an expression of approval. Heroes emerge from the young. It is truly the fortune of Hehuan Sect to have a disciple like you. This Sect Master shall not be stingy. I will personally test your strength. If there are any shortcomings, I can advise you on the spot. No matter how powerful Fang Chen was, he could not be completely flawless, right? He would definitely have some weaknesses. She could take this opportunity to criticize and teach him a lesson, letting him taste what it felt like to be lectured and scolded. Jai Ryu was extremely shocked. Having seen Fang Chen's methods with her own eyes, she was truly worried that the Sect Master would be careless and get injured by Fang Chen instead. She could not help but remind him, Junior Brother Fang, the Sect Master does not know your strength very well. Please exercise proper restraint. Fang Chen rubbed his nose. Was Jai Ryu, you overestimating him too much. At the end of the day, he was only a Foundation Establishment Realm disciple. Even if he attacked with all his strength, he could not harm the Hehuan Sect Master, just like when he fought with Gong Kei earlier. Even if she stood still and did nothing, he could not do anything to her. Yu Mingju was so angry her nose almost twisted out of place. What did Jai Ryu mean? Making it sound like she, a Sect Master, would suffer a loss at the hands of a mere Foundation Establishment Realm disciple. She stood up and walked to Fang Chen, saying calmly, you may attack with all your strength. This Sect Master will suppress my cultivation to Golden Core Realm's 2nd layer and will not harm you. Even though Fang Chen had a record of defeating a Golden Core Realm 2nd layer red-scaled evil Flood Dragon, that Flood Dragon's combat strength had been greatly reduced because it was out of water. With my Golden Core Realm 2nd layer cultivation, combined with my exquisite cultivation method and rich combat experience, I will definitely beat Fang Chen so badly even his own parents won't recognize him. She was already imagining the wonderful scene of Fang Chen's face swollen like a pig's, begging for mercy repeatedly. Only Jai Ryu covered her face, saying silently in her heart, it's over. The Sect Master is going to get taught a lesson again. Elder Ling noticed Jai Ryu's expression and looked confused. What was wrong with Jai Ryu? Could it be that she thought the Sect Master would suffer a loss? Shaking her head, she comforted Fang Chen in a gentle voice. Do not be nervous. Just use all your strength. After the spar, the Sect Master will give you careful guidance. This is an opportunity that countless disciples can only dream of. The Hehuan Sect Master was swamped with countless affairs every day. Even her most favored disciples rarely got the chance to spar and receive guidance from her. Fang Chen naturally understood how rare this opportunity was, so he did not refuse. He nodded and said, then I shall not hold back. Having had the experience of sparring with Gong Kei and being completely unable to harm her, Fang Chen had no scruples about attacking and immediately drew his black sword. He began with the opening stance of the asterisk sword heart engraving of fallen stars asterisk, unleashing the light-splitting sword strike accompanied by a deafening thunderclap. Yu Mingju was slightly shocked. You are also proficient in sword techniques and its power has reached the high mystic rank. She was rather surprised. Counting that finger technique he used earlier, Fang Chen already possessed 1 earth rank cultivation method and 1 high mystic rank sword technique. Where did a small Hehuan Sect disciple like him get so many powerful cultivation methods? Sensing the extraordinary nature of the sword move, she who had suppressed her cultivation did not dare to be careless. She inhaled from a distance, and the jade ruler on the long table was drawn to her through the air. She then immediately unleashed 3 stances of asterisk spring breeze, transforming into rain asterisk, a high mystic rank ruler technique. With one swing of the ruler, it drew water vapor from the air out of nowhere, transforming it into a stream of water that dispersed the incoming sword energy. "That's all you've got," Yu Mingju thought proudly to herself. No sooner had this thought crossed his mind than Fang Chen unleashed his second, impenetrable strike, asterisk sun rise over the azure sea asterisk. This far more potent sword technique swept forth with a deafening roar. Yu Mingju was faintly startled. This second move was far stronger than the first, nearly reaching the level of an earth-tier cultivation method. She immediately deployed her own second move, turning flowing water into countless droplets that shot forth like dense hidden weapons. Not only did they shatter the incoming sword Kai, but the remaining droplets hurtled straight toward Fang Chen. Fang Chen was slightly taken aback. This was the first time he had ever seen someone capable of dispersing his second move with a high-grade mystic tier cultivation method and still have strength left to counterattack. This ruler technique was truly extraordinary. Thus, Fang Chen held nothing back. He let out a low shout, asterisk stars fall upon heaven and earth. Asterisk this full-powered strike at the level of a low-grade earth tier cultivation method carried sharp, biting sword Kai and terrifying thunder loud enough to deafen anyone who heard it, crashing forth. Violently, the oncoming droplets were vaporized instantly, and the sword Kai did not slow in the slightest, charging straight for Yu Mingju. Earth-tier cultivation method, Yu Mingju cried out in shock. Only now did she realize how bizarre this sword art was, with the gap between its moves being unbelievably vast. She hurriedly waved her jade ruler again and again to block. She managed to disperse most of the sword Kai, but a small portion still broke through and slammed straight into her body. She immediately surged her spiritual power to shield her skin. Amidst the clanging, metal-like collision sounds, her surface spiritual power finally blocked the last trace of sword Kai. Even so, a sharp stinging pain still emanated from the areas struck by the sword Kai. Yu Mingju was equal parts shocked and furious. To her shock, had she not raised her Golden Core Realm's second layer spiritual power in time, she would have definitely been wounded by the sword Kai. What infuriated her was that Fang Chen had not ended up beaten black and blue as she had expected, but had even managed to inflict a minor injury on her. This was unforgivable. She tossed aside her jade ruler, clenched her palms into fists, and darted toward Fang Chen, clearly intending to fight in close quarters and make him suffer the pain of flesh and bone. Just in time, Fang Chen sheathed his sword with a click and let out a low roar, asterisk phoenix blood precious physique. Asterisk the Kai and blood within his body boiled, surging through every corner of his frame, turning him into a blood-red figure in an instant. He wanted to see how great the difference was between his fully unleashed body cultivation art and the physical strength of a Sect Master level powerhouse. At the same time, he directly deployed the final move from the asterisk, 9 stances of battle heaven asterisk, open the heavens. This was the strongest strike of his body cultivation art. Yu Mingju looked at the blood, covered Fang Chen in astonishment. What was this? Why had she never seen this when they were at the bottom of the cliff? She was completely bewildered. She had thought she had seen all of Fang Chen's tricks when they were at the bottom of the cliff, but as soon as they started fighting, all of Fang Chen's methods were completely new. How many more skills was this guy hiding? With a hint of curiosity in her eyes, she threw both fists straight toward Fang Chen's chest, while Fang Chen's open the heavens strike also roared forth. 4 fists collided with a thunderous crash that sent the air trembling violently. Immediately afterward, a wave of air rippled out in all directions from the point where their fists met, forcing Jai Ryu and Elder Ling to raise their sleeves to cover their faces. Jai Ryu was unsurprised by this turn of events, but Elder Ling was utterly shocked. He stared fixedly at the 2 deadlocked figures in the center of the airwave, his old eyes wide. He can actually match the Sect Master's physical strength equally with body cultivation art. Finally, he somewhat understood why Jai Ryu had repeatedly warned the Sect Master not to be careless. This Fang Chen was simply an existence that defied all common sense. On the battlefield, Yu Mingju was stunned. She had suppressed her cultivation to the Golden Core Realm second layer, but her physical strength could not be suppressed. Fang Chen had actually withstood this punch. Just how strong was this guy's body cultivation art? She ground her silver teeth and suddenly poured more power into her strike. Fang Chen was not one to back down either. With a loud bang, the air wave exploded, sending both of them flying backward. Yu Mingju glanced out of the corner of her eye at Jai Ryu and Elder Ling, and her face immediately flushed red. She had said she would teach Fang Chen a lesson, but they had ended up fighting to a draw. She did not hesitate any longer, immediately assuming the stance of a palm technique, and said, "I am about to use my most skilled palm technique. This is a complete low-grade earth tier cultivation method, so you had best be careful. If you can't hold on, admit defeat. Don't force yourself." Elder Ling clicked his tongue in amazement. Logically speaking, when sparring with a Foundation Establishment realm disciple like Fang Chen, Yu Mingju should not even need to use a cultivation method at all. Now, however, he had forced her to bring out her most skilled earth tier palm technique. Fang Chen grew solemn. The power of a Golden Core Realm second layer powerhouse wielding an earth tier cultivation method was unimaginably terrifying. He dared not hold anything back now. He immediately took the wooden case off his back and pulled out a gyukin with a snow-white body and crystal-colored strings. The moment she saw this item, Jai Ryu shuddered and immediately ran toward the hall entrance. She moved as fast as she could, terrified that she would be caught in the crossfire if she was even a moment too slow. Elder Ling was stunned and asked, "What are you running for?" Jai Ryu turned her head and shouted, "Great Elder, run, don't stay there." Elder Ling was both amused and exasperated. It was just a kin, was it really capable of affecting him? He examined the kin in Fang Chen's hand, but the moment he got a good look at it, his face turned grave. This was the life-bound magical artifact of the Great Elder of the Tianian Sect. How could it be in his hands? As a Great Elder of one of the 9 sects, he was naturally extremely familiar with Ming Yulian's magical artifact. This was the only high, grade 7, stringed kin in the entire land of the 9 sects. In Ming Yulian's hands, it could unleash immensely devastating power. Yu Mingju was also startled, then asked suspiciously, "This requires the cultivation method of the Heavenly Sound Sect to activate, does it not? Are you actually proficient in their techniques?" "Well..." Fang Chen sat cross-legged, the long zither resting on his knees, and said, "I have a smattering of knowledge. Please be careful, Sect Master." Yu Mingju dismissed his words with a scoff. The cultivation methods of the Heavenly Sound Sect revolve entirely around musical scores. Save for that unparalleled genius Fu Keijun, even internal disciples of the Heavenly Sound Sect struggle to comprehend powerful scores, let alone an outsider like Fang Chen. She said, "You are the one who ought to be careful. Without sufficient strength, you may not even be able to unleash the might of a high-grade magical artifact. Take this attack." Without another word, she struck out with an immensely powerful palm technique. Before she even closed the distance, the ferocious palm force rippled through the air, emitting shrill, deafening booms, as a rapidly expanding, visible palm print hurtled toward him with devastating force. Fang Chen moved unhurriedly, his 10 fingers plucking the zither strings. In an instant, a soul-shaking, terrifying sound wave, resembling the roar of a ferocious tiger, ringing right beside one's ear, erupted abruptly. That violent palm print was instantly shattered by the tiger-like roar of the zither melody. Furthermore, as Fang Chen's fingers sped up their playing, it was as if 100 tigers were charging down a mountain in the blink of an eye, carrying a horrifying, earth-shaking momentum. The ground beneath his feet cracked outward in all directions with him as the epicenter, splitting open into gullies as tall as a grown man. The marble floor tiles exploded outward one after another, flying and smashing in every direction, leaving deep dents in the walls and piercing through the glazed roof tiles. Elder Ling, who was caught off guard, was assailed by a hail of shattered bricks and stones. He swatted the debris away while hurriedly retreating out of the main hall. By the time he made it outside, he was unharmed but covered in dust from head to toe, looking thoroughly disheveled and... Jai Ryu hid behind a distant stone tablet, covering her mouth and snickering, thinking to herself, "Serves you right for not listening when I told you to run." The situation inside the hall shifted even more drastically. Yu Mingju immediately detected the abnormality of the cultivation method and cried out in shock, "Mid-earth, grade cultivation method." She hurriedly unleashed several more palm strikes, but under the increasingly rapid zither notes, she could not get close to Fang Chen at all. On the contrary, she was forced to retreat step by step. Seeing that her own sect master's hall was beginning to tremble violently, she hurriedly called a halt. Enough. Fang Chen smoothed out the zither strings, carefully placed it back into its wooden case, then stood up and cupped his hands in salute, saying, "Sect Master, did you hold back your power? That make no sense. Not long ago, even when Gong Kei stood still and let him attack, he could not do anything to her. There is no reason you, the Heavenly Pleasure Sect Master, who suppressed your realm, would only be evenly matched with me. Hold back my ass. Yu Mingju stared at her devastated sect master's hall, which had almost collapsed from the zither vibrations, her face pale with rage. She cursed inwardly. A disciple from an outside sect has a sound wave cultivation method, even stronger than the heavenly sound sects. Is there any justice left under the heavenly Tao? By this time, seeing the battle had ended, Elder Ling and Jai Rai, Yu hurried back. Staring at the ruined hall, they could not help but gasp in awe. This level of destructive power was truly terrifying. Elder Ling looked at the two of them and asked uncertainly, what was the result of this spar? Fang Chen laughed and said, naturally, the sect master held back on purpose. No matter what, she was the sect master. If she fought with full force, he would not even be able to withstand a single move. Thus, he spoke humbly, this disciple still has many shortcomings. I would be grateful if the sect master could give me some guidance. He wanted to see what areas he needed to improve in the eyes of the heavenly pleasure, sect master. Yu Mingju grew even angrier at those words. Shortcomings. If he had so many shortcomings, he almost shook her sect master hall to collapse. If he was perfect, would he tear down the entire heavenly pleasure sect? You are already powerful enough. This sect master has no guidance to give you, Yu Mingju said with a dark face. She would have loved to teach Fang Chen a proper lesson, but his performance was so stunning that any sect master would be dumbfounded. There was simply nothing to criticize. Well, if she really had to find one flaw, it was that Fang Chen hid far too many secret tricks, so many that she was left reeling in shock. She strongly suspected that Fang Chen had not even unleashed his more powerful abilities yet. Elder Ling was so shocked her eyes nearly popped out. She could not understand. A sect master wanting to teach a young disciple a lesson should be as easy as lifting a hand, right? How did things end up like this? Where on earth did things go wrong? Jai Rai, Yu stood silently to the side, her face turned away to hide the uncontrollable smile on her lips. She huffed inwardly, I told you to be careful, I told you to be careful, but you just wouldn't listen. Now look at you, you failed to teach Fang Chen a lesson, and ended up getting schooled instead. Fang Chen wore an awkward smile, assuming he had angered the heavenly pleasure, sect master, by damaging the main hall. He cupped his hands and said, this disciple will compensate for all the losses to the hall. Please do not be angry, sect master. Yu Mingju was seething with rage. She glared at him and said, do you think I am angry over the damage to the hall? Am I that petty in your eyes? Fang Chen was completely confused and asked, then why are you angry, sect master? Of course, I'm angry because I couldn't teach you a lesson. Yu Mingju ground her teeth as she thought this to herself, but only snorted out loud, it's none of your business. Fang Chen rubbed his nose, wondering why this sect master had the temper of a little girl. It felt oddly familiar to the other Yu Mingju he knew. He shook his head. Since he had handed in his task and met the sect master, the only thing left was to take a new task. He cupped his hands and said, Sect master, forgive me for asking, but does your sect have any tasks that require assistance from outside sect disciples? This disciple is of limited ability, but I can take on some level 1 tasks. No, not a single one. Yu Mingju replied firmly and decisively. Fang Chen was speechless. This sect master really had an incredibly petty temper, so what if he destroyed her hall? Was it necessary to hold such a grudge? Since that was the case, there was no need for him to stay any longer. He cupped his hands and said, then this disciple takes his leave. With that, he turned to leave. Who said you can leave? To Fang Chen's complete surprise, Yu Mingju crossed her arms over her chest and huffed proudly. You are not going anywhere from now on. You will stay right here in the heavenly pleasure sect.
Me.
After witnessing Fang Chen's even more formidable prowess, she was even more determined to never let Fang Chen leave. What the hell? Fang Chen was dumbfounded. This was like throwing a meat bun at a dog. He was never getting out of here alive. He immediately put on a solemn expression and said, Sect Master, this is no joke to make. Yu Mingju spoke with a serious gaze. This Sect Master is not jesting with you. I have taken a fancy to you. You will remain in the Hehuan Sect from now on, and choose one of the elders as your master. Of course, if you wish to take me as your teacher, I can also make an exception and take you as my sole disciple. As for the Azure Cloud Sect, I will naturally give them a proper explanation. Confirming that the Hehuan Sect Master was being serious, Fang Chen's complexion shifted slightly as he said, Forgive this junior for being unable to comply. If I were to switch my allegiance, would it not be far better for me to take Gong Kei as my master? The truth was, he had far too many ties and concerns bound to the Azure Cloud Sect. Yu Mingju wore a faint, amused smirk. This sect master did not ask for your opinion. You have no say in this matter. Fang Chen knew there was no way back left. Glancing at the main gate out of the corner of his eye, he shot forth towards it without hesitation. Yu Mingju remained completely unruffled, a playful glint in her eyes. Does someone I have set my sights on ever get to escape? With a flick of her sleeve, incomparably powerful spiritual force struck the two massive stone doors across the air. With a thunderous crash, the 1,000-jin heavy stone doors slammed shut. His path of escape blocked, Fang Chen gritted his teeth. Circulating spiritual power beneath his feet, he leapt directly onto the wall and charged towards the 10-Shanghai rooftop. The earlier zither melody had collapsed a large section of the rooftop, so he could definitely break out through there. He had barely made it halfway when Yu Mingju let out a silvery peal of laughter. I was already prepared for that trick of yours. With a flick of her jade-like finger, countless threads shot forth from her sleeve like silkworms spinning silk, covering the entire rooftop as if weaving a giant spider web. Fang Chen drew his black sword and struck out with a slash, only to be shocked to discover that not only were the threads unbroken, but a chip had even been knocked into his black sword. How is this possible? Fang Chen was greatly astonished. This black sword was a mid-grade magical artifact, and had been nurtured on Heavenly Sword Peak for many years, so it should have been supremely tough. For it to be chipped by a mere silk thread was unthinkable. Yu Mingju sat back down on the Sect Master's throne, resting her chin on both hands, her eyes crinkling into two crescent moons as she smiled. This is my natal magical artifact, Heavenly Mountain Silkworm Thread. It is indestructible, impervious to fire and water, and incomparably sharp. It can even slice through high-grade magical artifacts, so that black sword of yours is far from enough to stand against it. Fang Chen's face was as cold as water. The strength the Hehuan Sect Master had displayed just now was merely the tip of the iceberg. Her true hidden power was absolutely terrifying. If the black sword could not cut through it, surely his spirit artifact grade purple sword would work, right? Watching Fang Chen lost in thought, Yu Mingju coaxed him persuasively. Come now, join my Hehuan sect. I have never paid this much attention to a single disciple in over 10 years. She spoke the truth, though it was not solely because of Fang Chen's talent. His personality and moral character both pleased her greatly, otherwise she would never have gone to this much trouble. Fang Chen shook his head and said, I appreciate the Sect Master's kind intention, but let us speak of this again if fate permits in the future. Farewell. As soon as he finished speaking, he resolutely drew his purple sword, shattering the cloth wrapped around it, and slashed down at the silk threads. S-H-H-H, S-H-H-H, S-H-H-H. The silk threads were indeed extraordinarily tough. While the purple sword's sword kai could cut through most hard objects across thin air, these silk threads only finally snapped when the sword's edge made direct contact with them. The giant net was connected entirely. When one thread broke, the entire net was like tightly strung steel wires, snapping abruptly. Every silk thread ricocheted wildly in all directions, slicing clean through everything in their path. Fang Chen acted with lightning speed. Seizing the moment the silk net shattered, he leapt out through the gap in the rooftop in a single bound. Yu Mingju froze for a moment, unable to process for a second how her Heavenly Mountain silkworm thread had been cut. It was only when Fang Chen had already slipped out that she jolted upright, about to give chase. But the snapped silk threads were bouncing wildly through the hall, posing extreme danger, so she had no choice but to first gather all the threads before pursuing him outside. When she leapt onto the rooftop and scanned her surroundings, there was no trace of Fang Chen to be found. With his movement technique, he could vanish from sight in the blink of an eye, let alone after she had been delayed for so long. Damn it! Yu Mingju stamped her foot in rage, and the entire rooftop caved in instantly. She gritted her pearly whites sharply and snapped, spread the order, every single person in the entire sect shall go out and search for him. Dig 3 feet into the ground if you must, but find him. This was no longer a matter of whether to take Fang Chen as a disciple, but a matter of face. He was a dignified sect master, yet he had failed to detain Fang Chen even when acting personally. This was a humiliating disgrace of the highest order. Jai Rai Yu trembled as she watched the frenzied sect master. Junior brother Fang is far too heaven-defying. Even when the sect master personally made a move, he still managed to escape. Even though she knew Fang Chen was extraordinarily powerful, his successful escape still left her stunned. Elderling wore a look of speechless exasperation. This act of forcefully taking a disciple from another sect violated the agreements between the 9 sects, but she dared not refute it. The sect master was already furious right now. If she so much as uttered a word of dissent, she would probably be strung up and flogged by him. And so, in no time at all, every member of the Hehuan sect, from elders at the top to lowliest disciples, each clutching a portrait, began searching every nook and cranny inside and outside the Hehuan sect grounds. Little did they know that Fang Chen had already quietly descended the mountain via the precipitous cliff face. Hehuan Sect Master, you best pray you never fall into dire straits. If you do, I will most certainly play the villain and kick you when you are down. Fang Chen looked at his clothes, torn to rags by thorns, and his black sword that now bore a gaping chip in its blade, and his heart ached. That black sword had accompanied him for many days, and to see it damaged like this filled him with seething frustration. However, his most pressing priority right now was to get away from the Hehuan Sect as quickly as possible and leave the territory under its jurisdiction entirely. Pushing through a patch of brambles, he spotted a large cluster of buildings at the foot of the mountain. This was the city that lay at the base of the Hehuan Sect's territory. Out of an abundance of caution, Fang Chen changed into a new set of robes, rewrapped the purple sword securely, and finally put on the long, and used number 1 Shadow God Mask, blending into the city. Crowd as if nothing was amiss. He noticed that the entire city was filled with Hehuan Sect disciples, carrying his portrait and asking after him everywhere, even having imposed a city-wide arrest order. Fang Chen clicked his tongue in amazement. Is this really necessary? He did not dare linger here for even a moment, nor did he dare contact Yilingxing, Qin Kai, and Chuzing Meng. He feared they were already under surveillance, and if he so much as interacted with any of them, he would be discovered immediately. Senior Brother Tang, I think I'd better skip the exchange conference. All the participants are elite disciples from various sects. What qualifications do I have to attend? As Fang Chen walked through the crowd, he suddenly heard a familiar voice. When he turned to look, he saw a man and a woman walking side by side. The speaker was a young woman with delicate, pretty features, her shapely figure set off perfectly by an emerald green long dress. With each light step she took, a pleasant aroma of medicinal herbs drifted on the wind. She was none other than Su Qiuning, a disciple of the medicine peak of Qingyan Sect. The man beside her was even more familiar to Fang Chen. It was Tang Tianlong, who had come to the Hehuan Sect to carry out a level 2 mission. Rest easy, junior sister Su. With me here, no one dares say a word against you. Even though Tang Tianlong's arm had not yet fully healed, his cultivation realm was formidable enough that none of the elite disciples in attendance would dare provoke him for no reason. Su Qiuning still felt extremely uneasy and said, Senior Brother Tang, I'd really rather not. I don't have any valuable things worth exchanging, so I'd better not go and embarrass you. She felt somewhat helpless. She had only arrived at the Hehuan Sect not long ago after completing a level 3 mission, and Tang Tianlong had been extremely attentive and solicitous ever since he found out she was here. Aside from coveting her pill-refining abilities, she had also subtly noticed that Tang Tianlong kept sneaking glances at sensitive parts of her body, such as her chest, which made her feel disgusted. And she had been avoiding him this entire time. She had come out to the streets today to buy some medicinal materials, only to run into Tang Tianlong, who immediately began pressuring her to attend the Elite Disciples Exchange Conference. Junior Sister Su, are you really going to be so ungracious? Tang Tianlong's face darkened as he spoke. I am only trying to look out for you because we are from the same sect. You keep refusing me again and again. Do you look down on me? Su Qiuning waved her hands hurriedly. No, I would never mean that. Tang Tianlong said, so that means you'll be attending the exchange conference tonight, then? He had pushed the matter this far. Refusing any further would lead to a complete falling out. Far from her home sect and all alone, Su Qiuning did not dare to do such a thing, and could only give in. All right, I will see you tonight then. Tang Tianlong watched her walk away, a cold smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. Back in the sect, Elder Wen protects you. But outside the sect boundaries, do you really think I can't make you submit? I'll have you in my grasp tonight. A woman with both exceptional looks and figure, who also knew pill refining, was an invaluable asset for someone like him who was stationed at a frontline post. But he did not notice at all that Fang Chen, who was walking just ahead of him, had a glint of cold fury in his eyes. Some dogs never change their habit of eating shit. I cut off one of his arms, and he still hasn't learned his lesson. He had originally planned to leave immediately, but now he had no choice but to check into an inn to rest temporarily and wait for nightfall. When Hongyao had treated him well, now that her disciple was being targeted while far from home, and he had run into the situation, how could he pretend he had seen nothing? Furthermore, glancing at the chipped black sword in his hand, he also wanted to try his luck at the exchange conference, to see if he could find a suitable replacement. Not long after the curtain of night fell, Fang Chen slipped onto the main street, only to find disciples of the Joyful Union sect still wandering everywhere. He could not help but feel speechless. Their persistence was truly absurd. In the next instant, a sharp glint flashed across his eyes, and he actually headed directly toward the Joyful Union sect's location. He arrived at the sect's mountain gate. Just as he had predicted, the majority of the Joyful Union sect's forces were deployed in the city, leaving the sect's interior severely understaffed, to the point that not a single guard remained at the mountain gate. Rows of horse-drawn carriages were guarded solely by their respective owners. Taking cover under the veil of night, Fang Chen carefully leapt onto the carriage, holding the claws of the Silver Wing Thunderbird. The three women, Chu Meng, Qin Kei, and Yi Lingxing, were lying asleep inside the carriage compartment. By all appearances, they were waiting for Fang Chen to return. Fang Chen sighed silently. He feared that their paths would have to diverge here. After a moment of thought, he took out 3 small jade vials, each containing a single spring return elixir, and placed one before each of the 3 women. Their journey had come to an end. He took the sharp claw without making a sound, then vanished into the darkness and departed without a trace. At Teibai Restaurant, Fang Chen carried the long sharp claw up to the 2nd floor. The claw was wrapped in cloth strips, looking extremely mysterious. As soon as he ascended the stairs, he drew frequent sidelong glances. Coupled with the fact that Fang Chen wore a mask and loose robes, it was all the harder for others to guess his identity. The elite disciples of various sects gathered in the restaurant all wore faint expressions of apprehension. Su Qiuning and Tang Tianlong had long since arrived, and like the other disciples, they had formed a circle and sat cross-legged on the floor. Su Qiuning was extremely reserved. When she saw Fang Chen, who exuded an aura of unapproachable might, her heart began to pound with panic. What made her avoid his gaze even more was that Fang Chen was walking straight toward her. "May I sit beside you?" Fang Chen asked. Su Qiuning stammered hurriedly, "Why, yes, you may." Tang Tianlong, who sat beside her, was instantly displeased. Not all attendees had arrived yet, so there were plenty of empty seats. Why did this man have to sit right next to Su Qiuning of all places? He spoke with a blank, cold expression. "My apologies, this seat is taken. You would do best to find another place to sit, friend." Fang Chen nodded slightly. "Very well." Just as Tang Tianlong assumed Fang Chen was about to leave, Fang Chen casually swung a slap toward him. Tang Tianlong burned with rage. To attack him openly in front of so many elite disciples, was this man deliberately humiliating him? He immediately unleashed a full-powered punch, but the outcome, that casual, understated slap from the other party, actually sent him flying directly into the wall. The impact left a coppery, metallic taste of blood in his throat, and Tang Tianlong was filled with abject terror. He had struck back with every ounce of his strength just now, yet he could not even withstand a random strike from this man. What terrifying level of power did this individual possess? The elite disciples present also had their pupils constrict sharply. They all speculated that Fang Chen was most likely at the golden core realm of cultivation. Fang Chen sat down casually in Tang Tianlong's seat and muttered to himself, "Well, now there's an empty seat, isn't there?" Su Qiuning could feel Fang Chen's oppressive, powerful aura, and was so nervous and unsettled that she was about to stand up and change seats. But just as she moved, she heard Fang Chen say in a cold, flat tone, "Sit still." Su Qiuning's body froze. She was nearly scared to tears and did not dare to stand up again. She carefully shifted her hips, trying to get as far away from Fang Chen as possible. This scene made Tang Tianlong burn with unbridled rage, but he did not dare to voice his anger. After their brief exchange just now, the enormous gap between their strengths was obvious to all. Everyone present fell deathly silent, too afraid to make even the slightest sound. Suddenly, the entire restaurant began to tremble. Everyone looked toward the staircase, their eyes filled with reverence and awe. They saw an iron tower, like one armed young man climbing the stairs with heavy, thudding steps. Each step he took shook the entire Tei-I restaurant violently. Only a disciple of the Giant Sect could possess such a formidable, godlike physique. That man was none other than Sun Chaozong. Numerous disciples stepped forward one after another to offer respectful salutations, yet Tang Tianlong wisely kept his distance and seated himself far away. After all, the death of Tai Bubai had left relations between the Giant Sect and Azure Cloud Sect extremely strained. Sun Chaozong swept his gaze across the surroundings, naturally recognizing the 2 Azure Cloud Sect disciples, Tang Tianlong and Su Qiuning. He scoffed, "Trash from the Azure Cloud Sect are everywhere. What, that fellow named Fang Chen didn't come?" Su Qiuning's eyes suddenly lit up. Junior brother Fang has come to the Joyful Union Sect. Tang Tianlong was also taken aback. Wasn't he escorting goods to the Spirit Beast Sect? How could he be at the Joyful Union Sect? When Sun Chaozong saw that the 2 of them did not even know Fang Chen had arrived, he snorted coldly. "It seems that Brat saw the situation turning bad and went into hiding. I was even preparing to teach him a proper lesson." Immediately after, he strode forward with his massive steps and seated himself directly across from Su Qiuning, a malicious, ill-intentioned glint appearing on his face. This made Su Qiuning even more terrified, with a domineering, overbearing, mysterious man seated beside her and a ferocious, god-killing fiend across from her. Why was she so cursed with misfortune? She glanced cautiously at Fang Chen, her expression conveying a request for instruction. As senior brother, I don't want to participate anymore. I want to leave. Fang Chen dropped the sharp beast claw he had been carrying onto the ground. The several hundred Jin heavy claw struck the earth with a deep, resonant thud, startling Su Qiuning so badly she trembled. She spoke hurriedly. I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. She tucked her neck in like a frightened little rabbit, tears glistening in her eyes, not daring to move even an inch. Only then did Sun Chaozong, sitting opposite, notice Fang Chen, a faint look of solemnity crossing his face. That claw on the ground weighed no less than several hundred Jin, yet this man had carried it on his shoulder as if it weighed nothing at all. This led Sun Chaozong to judge that the other party possessed an extraordinarily powerful physical constitution. Combined with his shrouded mystery, this sparked a wisp of apprehension in his heart. He cupped one hand in greeting and asked, "Esteemed friend, may I dare ask which sect you hail from, senior brother?" The entire crowd fell silent. Both Sun Chaozong and this mysterious figure were ruthless, formidable participants in this current gathering, and everyone present wished to glean the mysterious man's origins from their exchange. Yet Fang Chen responded with utter cold indifference. "You are not worthy to ask." Sun Chaozong was instantly enraged. He was a dignified elite disciple of the Giant Sect, and he had initiated the conversation only to be treated with such rudeness. However, disciples of the Giant Sect were far from being mere muscle-headed brutes. His eyes flickered as he quickly calmed himself. Before he could ascertain Fang Chen's true strength, he had no intention of rashly starting a conflict. But if he discovered the other party's strength was nothing remarkable, no one could blame him for employing cruel, ruthless methods. Sensing the dangerous turn of the atmosphere, the elite cultivators in attendance wisely kept silent, not daring to make any loud noise for fear of incurring the displeasure of these two ruthless figures. A voice rang out, "Why is it so quiet? I thought none of you had arrived yet." At that moment, several people walked in from the stairwell. They wore coarse linen robes, their skin rough and reddened, both men and women alike, a stark contrast to the brightly dressed disciples of the various sects. Their arrival sparked a warm welcome from all the disciples present, and the crowd began chattering excitedly. "Chief Aoyong, we finally get to meet you in person. Is he that peerless genius? Thousand Forging Sect claims appears only once every 1,000 years. That's no exaggeration at all. His artifact forging skill already surpasses that of the current Thousand Forging Sect Master. If his martial cultivation realm had kept pace, he would have taken over the position of Thousand Forging Sect Master long ago. If you ask me, it won't be long now. His martial talent is also exceptionally strong. He's already at the first layer Golden Core realm, no weaker than the chief disciples of any other sect. Give him 10 years, and he will likely reach the late Golden Core realm and take over as Sect Master. At that time, he won't even be 30 years old, right? A Sect Master under 30 that will set an unprecedented precedent in the history of the 9 sects. Fang Chen clicked his tongue in wonder as he listened. There was actually such a figure in the lands of the 9 sects. Compared to Fu Keijun of the Heavenly Sound sect, this chief Aoyong before him was far more impressive. Aoyong smiled gently, his demeanor extremely amiable, with none of the arrogance that exuded from Fu Keijun. He said, "Chief or not, that is far too much praise from all of my fellow senior and junior brothers and sisters. That all of you could accept the invitation and come tonight is the greatest honor I could ask for. These are just small trinkets. Please don't look down on them. Each of you may take one." 2 burly junior disciples behind him stepped forward, straining under the weight of a large wicker basket, passing slowly before each person present one by one. Fang Chen looked over and discovered that the basket was filled with all kinds of low-grade magical artifacts. Common ones like swords, sabers, and spears were present, as well as many rarer artifacts such as darts, steel needles, axes, and more. It was a dazzling array of goods, with every type imaginable. Most importantly, Fang Chen noticed that every single artifact was brimming with spiritual light and of exceptionally high quality. If sold on the open market, these would absolutely be highly sought after, each worth no less than 100 spirit stones. Yet now they were being given away casually as gifts to everyone in attendance. One had to admit that this Aoyong was extraordinarily generous. Of course, to put it another way, he was exceptionally skilled at winning people over. Beneath his rough, unrefined exterior, he undoubtedly possessed an incredibly shrewd, perceptive mind. Sun Chaozong laughed and said, as expected of senior brother Aoyong, only you can be so lavish. I won't stand on ceremony then. He selected an axe, hefted it in his hand, and looked quite satisfied with it. Aoyong-jun smiled and replied, as long as junior brother Sun doesn't find it lacking, that is more than enough for me. Everyone take one, don't be polite. Soon the wicker basket reached Su Qianing. She was overjoyed, having never expected that there would be gifts for attending the gathering, and immediately began browsing. She took a fancy to a beautiful silver-white dagger inlaid with precious stones, and picked it up happily. But at that moment, Fang Chen suddenly snatched the dagger from her hand and tossed it back into the basket, then pulled out a dull black, rough-looking dagger that appeared half finished and stuffed it into her hand, saying, "Take this one." Su Qianing looked first at the beautiful dagger that had been thrown back, then at the ugly dagger forced into her hand. Her red lips trembled slightly, and she was so wronged that tears swirled in her eyes. She thought to herself, this is so unfair. I'm not even allowed to pick a pretty dagger. What right does he have to do that? Tang Tianlong's eyes blazed with fury as he watched, thinking to himself, this scoundrel is truly going too far to bully others. But in the next moment, Aoyong-jun wore a look of profound meaning, cupped his fists and said, "Fellow cultivator, you have an exceptional eye." Su Qianing froze for a moment, pointed at the crude dagger in her hand, and asked in confusion, "Senior brother Aoyong, are you referring to this dagger? That can't be right. Whether in appearance or quality, it is far inferior to the small silver dagger I picked earlier. How is Fang Chen's choice of this dagger a sign of good judgment?" Aoyong-jun smiled lightly and said, "Try infusing spiritual power into it." Half believing and half doubting, Su Qianing activated her spiritual physique to energize the dagger. The dagger trembled violently, layers of impurities peeling off its surface to reveal a brand new crystal, clear dagger radiating spiritual light that reached the grade of a mid-grade magical artifact. Su Qianing stared in shock at the completely transformed dagger, which was a full tier higher than the previous silver dagger in both design and quality. Aoyong-jun looked at the two with a smile, guessing their relationship, and said, "This mid-grade magical artifact alone is proof that this fellow cultivator not only has eyes as sharp as a torch, but also dotes on this junior sister greatly." Only then did Su Qianing realize that the mysterious man beside her, who seemed overbearing, had actually acted for her own good. But this made her even more fearful. This unprovoked kindness, could he have some improper intentions towards her? At this thought, she was so frightened that she immediately returned the dagger to Fang Chen. I can't accept this." Looking at her flustered appearance, Fang Chen felt the urge to tease her, put on a cold expression, and said, "No one can refuse a gift from me, take it." Upon hearing this unassailable tone, Su Qianing trembled and immediately withdrew her outstretched hand. She clutched the dagger, not daring to throw it away, yet feeling it burn her palm to hold it, pacing anxiously like an ant on a hot stove. Aoyong-jun eyed Fang Chen with a hint of wariness. This man was not only mysterious, but also extremely domineering, his bearing nothing like that of a disciple from the 9 sects. He gave Fang Chen a deep, meaningful glance, then cupped his fists with a smile and said, "Fellow cultivator, why don't you pick one as well?" Fang Chen glanced casually at the wicker basket and said, "No interest." He already carried countless possessions large and small on his person, and had no space for another useless low-grade magical artifact. Aoyong-jun felt his face heat up slightly in embarrassment. His reputation was widespread, and countless people had to pull strings and ask for favors just to obtain a magical artifact he personally forged. Yet here he was, actively currying favor with the elites of the various sects, only to be coldly rebuffed by this man. However, as he could not fathom the depth of this man's strength, he dared not vent his anger. He pretended nothing had happened and ordered his subordinates to carry the basket onward, letting the remaining people make their selections. Once everyone except Fang Chen had received their small gift, he said, "Friends, time is of the essence. I will not take up any more of your time. Let us begin the trading conference now, and I shall make the first offering." With that, he took out an iron casket, and even through its walls one could feel the biting cold seeping out from within. Aoyong-jun did not keep them in suspense and opened the iron casket. A 3-foot-long sword, entirely ice crystal-colored as if carved from solid ice, came into view of everyone present. Thick cold mist billowed off its surface, and its blade glinted with sharp, piercing edge. Aoyong-jun grasped the sword firmly, stroked its blade, and wore a look of deep satisfaction. "This is one of the 3 proudest works of my life, named Morning Frost," everyone present. Many sword users present stared fixedly at the sword, frowned slightly, and voiced their doubts. Is this a sword or an ice sculpture? A sword is meant to defeat enemies, not serve as an ornament. Aoyong-jun smiled faintly, said no more, grasped the hilt, and swung it casually at the wall beside him. Astoundingly frigid cold burst forth from the ice sword, covering the entire wall with a finger-thick layer of ice in an instant. If it had struck a person, they would have been frozen solid into an ice sculpture immediately. Sharp intakes of breath echoed through the hall as many warriors stood up in shock. It possessed such terrifying power, even without being infused with spiritual power. What kind of sword was this, with such a fearsome ability? No one dared question its power any longer, and all wore looks of awe and wonder. Aoyongjun placed the ice sword back into the iron casket and said, "Would a work I, Aoyongjun, consider a proud creation be a mere ordinary magical artifact? This sword was forged from ice essence. Over half a year, and its grade is that of a high-grade magical artifact." As soon as these words left his mouth, the entire hall erupted in shocked exclamations. High-grade magical artifacts were certain possessions only of the sect leaders of each sect. Even elders could only obtain one depending on their status, and elders with insufficient strength might not even be able to own a single high-grade magical artifact. No one expected Aoyongjun to actually bring it to the trading conference. Fang Chen's eyes blazed with interest. He had already experienced the power of a high-grade magical artifact firsthand from Ming Yulian's 7-stringed zither. Moreover, the quality of this sword before him was even higher than that zither. If he wielded it to perform his sword techniques, their power would immediately rise by an entire tier. Watching the expressions of the crowd, Aoyongjun was greatly pleased. As an artifact refiner, what brought him greater joy than seeing his forged magical artifacts coveted by others? Of course, he had no intention of letting it go cheaply. Closing the iron casket, he cupped his fists and said, "For this morning frost, I wish to trade for some special artifact refining materials." This was within everyone's expectations. Artifact refiners valued refining materials above all else, and many people secretly wondered if the materials they possessed were sufficient to trade for morning frost. That was until Aoyongjun stated his specific requirement, which made almost everyone present give up hope immediately. "I require a single bone from a demon emperor, no less than 3 feet in length." As soon as these words were spoken, a wave of discussion broke out. Is he joking? How could people like us ever be worthy of obtaining a demon emperor's bone? In the entire 9 sects domain, the only known demon emperor corpse was that of a shape-shifting tiger demon from ancient times. After its death, its remains were seized by 4 of the continent's strongest experts. Among our 9 sects, only the Sect Master of the Spirit Beast Sect was granted a small amount of Demon Emperor's essence blood due to his connection to a senior expert, and no one has ever obtained a precious bone fragment from it. Anyone hoping to trade for such a bone can give up all hope in the 9 sects domain. Fang Chen fell silent. How could the young Sect Master of the 1,000 Refinements Sect not know whether Demon Emperor bones existed across the 9 sect lands? Deliberately putting forth an unattainable condition meant he either had no sincerity to strike a deal or was quoting an exorbitant price to wait for haggling so he could seize the upper hand in the negotiation. Sure enough, after the crowd had discussed for some time, he sighed and spoke. "Alas, but the value of this sword is truly worth a single Demon Emperor bone. I would suffer a grave loss if I sell it for too low a price." Seeing that he had relented, the crowd's minds began to stir with new possibilities. A glint flashed across Sun Chaozong's eyes. He pulled a white rib bone from the long bag behind him, which emanated an enduring, unyielding demonic aura, and said, "This is the bone of a late-stage Golden Core Realm demonic beast that my sect once hunted. I wonder if it is sufficient to exchange for Aishuang." Aoyongjun was immediately tempted, but after a careful inspection, he said regretfully, "This bone is at least 100 years old. Its interior has long since weathered, making it unsuitable for forging high-grade magical artifacts." A faint ripple passed through Fang Chen's heart. It seemed Aoyongjun's real target was precisely the bone of a late-stage Golden Core demonic beast. Though the Silver Wing Thunderbird was at the 5th level of the Golden Core realm, belonging to mid-stage Golden Core demonic beasts, the part Fang Chen had cut off was its most precious claw. In terms of hardness, it was in no way inferior to the bone of a late-stage Golden Core demonic beast, and should be able to satisfy Aoyongjun. "Fellow Taoist, do you possess the bone of a late-stage Golden Core demonic beast?" Aoyongjun suddenly looked toward Fang Chen, his eyes filled with a thread of expectation. Among everyone present, apart from Sun Chaozong, this mysterious man was the most likely to be able to produce the required exchange item. "I do not." Fang Chen shook his head, refusing calmly. This sharp claw had been publicly displayed at the entrance of the Hehuan Sect, and Sun Chaozong had been present at the scene. If he took it out to trade now, Fang Chen's identity would be exposed immediately. Given Sun Chaozong's penchant for reporting others, he would most likely expose Fang Chen's presence here to the Hehuan Sect on the spot. This matter could only be conducted in secret. Disappointment crossed Aoyongjun's face. After asking the rest of the people present, none of them could meet his exchange requirement either. Greatly disappointed, he wrapped the iron box with cloth strips and said, "Very well, let the next person present their item for sale." He did not lower the price further, so the crowd had no choice but to snuff out their misplaced hopes and turn their attention to the upcoming exchanges. Everyone present were elite disciples, and the items they brought out were all quite exceptional treasures. Even Fang Chen was tempted by many of them, but considering he already carried far too many items on his person, he could only suppress his surging desire to purchase more. "It is your turn, fellow Taoist," Aoyongjun reminded him. As the night deepened, it was finally Fang Chen's turn. Aoyongjun had been guessing at Fang Chen's identity this entire time. He carried 2 swords on his person and a wooden case on his back that by size should hold a 7-stringed gyukin. Could he be proficient in both sword arts and sound path cultivation methods? This left him quite puzzled, and he could only judge Fang Chen's identity and background from the items he intended to sell. Fang Chen, who had long prepared for this moment, took out a bottle of dark red medicinal pills. It was the remaining 3-step drunk, with only a dozen or so pills left. The crowd looked over curiously, but when they saw it was medicinal pills, their interest waned. The elite disciples before him had already peddled many medicinal pill items, all of which were largely the same, either for healing injuries or boosting cultivation progress. Ever since the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion issued the notice to resist the beast tide, everyone had been madly stockpiling these 2 types of medicinal pills. The vast majority had already saved up enough and had no need for additional supplies. Aoyongjun also shook his head slightly, his expectation for Fang Chen dropping to rock bottom, but he still abided by his duty as the host and asked politely, "What kind of medicinal pill is this?" Fang Chen did not answer and instead asked, "Do any of you have a demonic beast with you? The fiercer the better." The crowd stared at each other in confusion. What did he mean by this, and why did he specifically ask for the fiercer ones? A look of surprise crossed Aoyongjun's face. It turned out this was not a pill for healing or boosting cultivation, which piqued his interest a little. He said, "What a coincidence. Not long ago, my 1,000 Refinement sect captured a ferocious demonic beast in the 10,000-layer mountains. It has the strength of the 1st level of the Golden Core realm, and is so vicious and difficult to tame that I am escorting it to the Spirit Beast sect to ask for their help in taming it." "It is right downstairs." Fang Chen nodded, grabbed the jade bottle, stood up and walked to the window. The crowd also followed over, looking down to the 1st floor through the window. Inside that huge iron cage was locked a tall, ape-like demonic beast, its 4 limbs tightly bound by chains as thick as a man's arm. Even so, it was incomparably fierce, huffing rough breaths from its nostrils, its bloodshot eyes staring coldly at its surroundings. It would let out low growls from time to time, shaking the entire prison cart violently. 4 disciples of the 1,000 Refinement sect stood on guard against it, as if facing a great enemy, their faces filled with deep unease. "What a fierce brute! It still won't behave even in this state. Ape-type demonic beasts have always been the most unruly and difficult to tame, extremely vicious. No wonder they are sending it to the Spirit Beast. Sect ordinary people truly have no way of subduing this kind of demonic beast." A faint look of surprise crossed Fang Chen's face. "It is actually a black, backed blood-eyed ape. This is the most vicious type of ape demonic beast, and they would rather die than surrender. Very few people can catch one alive." "Oh," Aoyongjun said in surprise. "Fellow Taoist has excellent eyesight to actually recognize this beast. All along our journey, no one has been able to correctly name this beast. The fact that Fang Chen could tell what it was at a glance made him sense even more that Fang Chen was no ordinary person." Aoyongjun continued, "To tell you the truth, fellow Taoist, this black, backed blood-eyed ape was captured personally by my sect master, and only with a stroke of luck. Our previous multiple capture attempts all ended like you said. They would rather die than surrender, making it impossible to take them alive. Even so, its vicious nature remains unchanged. We have suffered no small amount of losses transporting it along the way, and 1 disciple even had an arm torn off by it carelessly." Fang Chen nodded slightly, poured a single 3-step drunk pill out of the jade bottle, and threw it accurately into the prison cart. Aoyongjun laughed in spite of himself. "Fellow Taoist, there is no need to try. This beast has an extremely unruly temperament. Ever since we captured it, it has been on a hunger strike. It refuses all the food we offer it. Even if we force it into its mouth, it will spit it out. If it really cannot spit it out, it will claw at its own throat to vomit out everything in its stomach. Speaking of this, he wore a pained expression. I am very worried that it will starve to death or die of thirst halfway before we reach the Spirit Beast Sect. The crowd clicked their tongues in amazement upon hearing this. This ape was truly stubborn and unyielding to the extreme. However, someone quickly noticed something was wrong. Hunger strike, what is it doing right now? Ao Yongjun looked down and was immediately stunned rigid. The red pill had landed inside the prison cart. As always, the black-backed blood-eyed ape flew into a great rage, struggling and swinging its chains to reject any form of feeding. But suddenly its nose twitched and it lowered its head to search around. When it spotted the three-step drunk, it lifted its foot in anger, intending to crush it to pieces. But that foot would not come down no matter what. A pained, struggling expression appeared on its face. Finally, it retracted its foot, slowly bent down and picked up the three-step drunk, holding it to its mouth one moment and wanting to throw it away the next. After several rounds of internal struggle, it could no longer hold back, tossed it into its mouth and devoured it ravenously. Ao Yongjun was utterly shocked. It actually ate it of its own volition. Fellow cultivator, your medicinal pill is so miraculous that even a demonic beast cannot resist its allure at all. Fang Chen's face remained completely impassive as he said, "Keep watching." That was right. The effect of this medicinal pill was still unknown. Ao Yongjun watched on full of curiosity, guessing in his heart that its function was most likely a drug that rendered demonic beasts unconscious. However, it would probably be useless against a demonic beast as ferocious and unruly as the black-backed blood-eyed ape. Along the journey, he had used such sedative drugs multiple times, even spending a huge sum to purchase a top-grade drug that could knock a demonic beast unconscious within 1 hour, yet none had managed to make it pass out. Right now, what effect could a tiny single medicinal pill from Fang Chen possibly have? The result would most likely fall short of expectations. However, the moment this thought crossed his mind, less than 10 breaths after the black-backed blood-eyed ape swallowed the medicinal pill, it suddenly started staggering unsteadily. It seemed to realize what was happening as it gripped the cage and shook its head violently. It struggled with all its might to stay conscious, but the overwhelming vertigo was impossible to resist. Finally, with a heavy thud, it collapsed to the ground. The elite disciples present were completely dumbfounded by the sight. It had knocked a golden core realm demonic beast unconscious in merely 10 breaths, and that was an extremely violent ape-type demonic beast at that. Most terrifying of all, the demonic beast was completely incapable of resisting the allure of the medicinal pill. Even knowing it was bad for it, it still could not hold itself back from eating it. If one took a handful of these medicinal pills and scattered them across the front lines of the beast tide, the effect would be unimaginable. Numerous disciples stared in unison at the few remaining red medicinal pills in Fang Chen's hand, their eyes burning with fervent desire. This was a priceless treasure, the finest item they had encountered so far aside from Hehuan.